Thank you so much for joining us. Sorry for the confusion earlier with the two Zoom links. We need to jump in and get started so we have enough room to get through the presentation and leave some time for presentations afterwards. This is AIA Colorado's Committee on the Environment, Session 4. The focus will be beyond the surface, vetting materials for health, carbon, and impact. There is one AIA HSW credit for today's session. Please put your first and last name in the chat for credit. If you registered without your AIA number, put your first and last name with your number in the chat so you can get those continuing education credits. Also, happy Juneteenth to everyone. Thank you for joining us on a holiday as well. As we go along, if you have any questions for the presenters as we go, please put your questions in the chat and we'll go through those at the end during the Q&A. If you're still on the call with us then and you'd like to ask your question, I'll invite you to unmute yourself and ask your question, or I will just read it aloud to the presenters. My name is Marisol Gallagher. I am the moderator for today. I am the founder and principal of Marisol Studios, and we have a fantastic lineup of presenters and speakers today. We have James Erickson. He is the climate responsive designer at Fentress Studios. We have Andrea Arias. She is a design professional too, also at Fentress Studios. We have Tommy Linstroth with us, the founder and CEO of Green Badger. And we have Deborah Lucking, the Director of Sustainability, also at Fentress Studios. We have our course description up here for all of you to see as well. We'll be discussing, we want to go to the course learning objectives. These are the 4 learning objectives for today. We will be going through some tools that are free for designers to use as well. So before I hand it over, just another reminder, if you haven't already, please put your first and last name in the chat to record attendance, and I will go ahead and pass it over to our presenters. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon. This is James with Fentress Studios. And what we're going to talk about is a range of how materials impact our environment, our lives, and our society. What we see here is AIA Materials Pledge, where we have 5 statements. I'm going to go over 3 of those as an example of how they impact our daily lives. The 3 we're going to focus on is climate health, human health, and social health equality. In case anybody here doesn't know, we live in a sealed ecosystem. Although somewhat resilient, we can only push it so far before that starts coming back at us, and we end up destabilizing the climate, our health, our cities, our societies, and so on. Beginning with climate health, embodied ecological impacts. These are effects that could be short-term or long-term over from a project, from industrial extraction of materials. It can affect communities, ecosystems, and general health of the environment. Here we see the Los Alamos River in Colorado in 2015. This is from a breach and trailings dam that flooded, leached out into the river and affected communities, or it's still affecting communities. Looking at another waterway in China, over the past 18 years, the extraction of sand for a very simple product, concrete, has left that river delta in less than pristine shape, affecting communities, ecosystems, and the natural habitat of water life, both on the surface and beneath the surface. These impacts, both in the immediate and distant future, have long-lasting effects and unseen impacts on our society. From habitat destruction, mountaintop removal, poison streams, the removal and exploitation of indigenous lands. We have effects beneath the surface of the water where we don't see, and we don't have a lot of voices to witness what's going on. And we have some very large holes that are occurring, and I doubt anybody has plans for filling those up. Moving on to human health, this is something that we often witness in our lifetime. However, we don't always know where this is coming from. But first, a warning. Installation of materials containing high levels of volatile organic compounds, VOCs, and or inorganic chemicals can contribute to higher indoor concentrations of gases that may negatively impact occupant health. Exposure symptoms may include conjunctival irritation, nose, throat, and discomfort, headaches, allergic skin reaction, dystopia, nausea, chemical burns, fatigue, and dizziness. Known long-term effects, health impacts, some organics include eye, nose, skin, and throat irritation, damage to liver, kidney, and central nervous systems, and can elevate cancer risk in animals and humans. That being said, 90% of the American lifespan is typically spent indoors. Indoor concentration of VOCs are typically 10 times higher inside than they are outside. That's not setting us up for a very good match here. And how do we know this? This is a case study from a project I participated in while in grad school, where we looked at an intervention on affordable housing for elderly adults. The retrofit addressed, we're replacing many features in the apartments, and we had a three-stage panel intervention and case study where we had before, immediately after, and 1 year after intervention data collection. The data collection involved occupant surveys and measure data. We also compared the data to national average and local data health databases to compare occupant health issues with the national and local. Here is an image of the sampling strategy we had, where we tested for VOCs, inorganic compounds, chemical compounds, particulate matter, that's what I'm thinking of, and reference that back to the occupants' self-reporting on health issues. One major finding we had here was formaldehyde reduction. You see 3 lines across the screen here reporting the before, immediately after, and 1 year after the intervention. As you can see, the after intervention, 1 year after, shows a significant reduction in formaldehyde levels within the apartment complex. However, we must point out that even at the lowest level of 15 parts per billion is twice the level of the reference exposure level of 7 parts per billion by California 8-hour standard exposure standards. We are living in environments that exceed safety standards. So with that data in mind, which of these products would you prefer inside your home's walls? Moving on to social health equality. Pose the same question. Which project would you prefer a family member to install as a profession? That's sheep wool on the right there on the left. Socially health equality impacts the ways that individuals involved in the production or living near production or disposal locations of products and materials are affected by these operations. This is not just the people in the room with the material. These are people who are living adjacent to manufacturing plants, the extraction of raw materials, and those living adjacent to disposal sites for these materials. Remember this mess? The tailings dam affected communities up and down the Los Alamos River, and it is still impacting communities to this day, where there is a state and federal program to test metal levels in the fish in the rivers here. This accident impacted an entire nation where the water mineral levels often exceed the Navajo reservation's necessary or screening levels maximum with their irrigation programs. This was unintended, but it's going to be lasting for many, many generations. Social health equality is not forced labor. We have an estimated 27.5 million people involved in forced labor in the production of materials that go into the building sector. This is often due to exploitation of living conditions, poverty, and discrimination, and simply lack of education. It also hinders fair competition between businesses when one business can exploit the labor of a group of people versus somebody who is able to pay fair wages and health benefits to their workers. Social health equality is not negligence of human health. This is a 5-minute Google of looking at a simple product. Scoliosis surge in countertops. We found that manufactured stone countertops tend to be more toxic to the workers and installers than the individuals who are working with natural stone. Not saying that natural stone is any healthier, but it is a product that does create a health concern to a minority group who tend to be Latino immigrants installing and manufacturing these products. The social health equality can be manufacturers that secure human rights in their own operations and supply chains, positively impacting their workers and the communities where they operate. This is from our AIA Materials Pledge. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Andrea, who's going to delve deeper into the methodology and thinking behind the AIA Materials Pledge.
Hello, my name is Andrea Arias, and I am with Fentress Studios. And today I will be talking about the materials pledge and how do we take all this information and make it applicable to your practice. Give me 1 second. Can you lower your... No? Okay. Next. That's better. Next one. So this is the materials pledge, the full text. And so when I see this, I wouldn't blame anyone for being overwhelmed. Next one. Same with this. When I see this, I see a wall of text and I don't even know where to start. Next one. So when we look at these documents, when we look at these pledges, we have to ask ourselves, what does this truly mean? What does this look like for your firm and your operations? And so what we're going to do now is we're going to take each and every one of them and we're going to break them down.
Andrea, hold on just a second. I think, James, if you wouldn't mind muting your microphone, I think we're getting a little bit of feedback from that.
Oh, okay.
Or Deborah's PC audio is getting picked up by adjacent microphones. That might.
Let's see.
That could also be it.
Okay, is this better? No, it's not. I'll just say next one and I'll go into the other room. Okay, is this better? We're taking a tour through Fentress Studios.
Oh, that's perfect.
Sorry, we're dealing
Beautiful.
with technology.
Let me see. Lighting is better here. Okay, so what we did here is that we simplified, and for me, the first 4 are kind of a group, and they can be easily correlated and integrated into design and existing firm operations. And then number 5 is kind of a siloed thing that we're going to talk about later. Next one, please. So I divided all of the topics that we're trying to touch on that pledge and say it's really 4 steps. Step 1, you target your high impact materials first. Step 2, you ask for carbon transparency from your manufacturers. Step 3, you make a decision, you take all that information, you analyze it, and you make a choice. And then lastly, the step 4, which is you decide if you want to track. And if you do decide, then that's a different part of the presentation where we talk about tools. Next, please. So climate health, target your high impact materials first. So focus on heavy, big hitters, the heavy hitters, concrete, steel, insulation, glazing, gypsum, flooring, ductwork. And these account for the majority of embodied carbon in buildings. And so while swapping paint might feel really good, really not all materials are created equal. And so just by replacing one concrete mix, you can reduce your carbon by 100 times than by changing the paint. Next one, please. Then we go to step 2, where you ask for carbon transparency. So it's important for us during the design phase to ask reps, manufacturers, when we're trying to consider with our client, what do we want to use for this project, that we do our due diligence and we ask for all this carbon transparency. Because the reality is that this is the process in which empowers you to make more informed and low impact design choices. And EPDs are your entry point. We're not expecting everyone to become a specialist. Next one, please. We really just want you to start reading the label and spotting red flags. And then when you see something weird, just ask the question, delve into further. Sometimes asking the questions makes manufacturers understand that there's a lot of due diligence that they haven't done. So if you don't know what an EPD is, it's just an environmental product declaration, like a nutrition label for your material. And so by doing just this simple step, you're already accelerating this process of creating using better materials for our built environment. Next one, please. Then once you have all this information, you gather all this data, now you can make a more informed decision. And the idea here is not to choose more expensive materials. The idea here is to swap the cost, but do an intelligent decision, an informed decision. And just choose, low carbon concrete, mass timber, recycled steel. You can look for carbon sequestering materials. Again, it's not about making the building more expensive. It's just about making more intelligent choices. Next one, please. And then these are all things that you can integrate into your practice, whether you are interested in tracking or not tracking. So to track or not to track, next step, next slide, please, is model track with a whole building life cycle analysis. Again, you don't have to do this. If you just do step 1 through 3, you're already doing something incredible. But if you do want to do lead, or if you do want to start having data to back up what you're doing and to show off your incredible work, then step 4 is where that kind of tracking aspect comes in. Next slide, please. And then lastly, number 5, which is the easiest part, is to advocate. Next slide, please. If you are ever in a room where there's policy being made or decisions being taken, or you can have a vote that just makes the overall panorama of our building industry turn a little more green or be more carbon forward, then use your voice, because your voice can be very powerful if you're in the right rooms. Next, please. So let's talk about human health, because this is something that everyone kind of says, but what does that really look like? Next one, please. So this is the original kind of step 1 through 4 that we were talking about. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start layering how all these pledges come together and how it all looks like in your design process. So you get your project. And so while designing, this is the moment where you request transparency in ingredients and health impacts for manufacturers. And then when you're spec writing, you have to eliminate any red list or problematic products that maybe you expect in the past, but this can be an opportunity to turn a new leaf and kind of make better decisions. And then integrate VOC limits and emission test requirements in your specs. Next, please. The same thing with circular economy. How do you keep track of this? How does this integrate what we've discussed so far? Next one, please. So this is, if you have a new building, then it's important to plan for disassembly, or kind of plan ahead of, okay, how long are you going to be in this building? What is it going to be used for next? If you can just have a strategy for it, you're already leaps and bounds ahead of what we're doing now. If it's an existing building, it's important to take stock of what you have, try to salvage building materials. And that, again, those are 2 very simple steps that will completely transform how green your building is. And again, while you're designing, consider modular design and offsite construction, so like materials and furnishings that can be recycled. And these small steps, these, I would say, design considerations, while you're designing, not only is it better for the environment and everything we've talked about so far, it's also a great way to save cost. These, again, being sustainable doesn't have to cost more money. It just needs to be a little bit more integrated in the way that we think about our buildings. And then at the end of the project, go back one more. At the end of the project, just try to reduce construction waste as much as possible. And while you're doing this, if you do decide to track, you can also incentivize manufacturers and require them, tell them, it would be really good if after we went through all this work, if it's the first time that they do it, that they publish their end of life strategy so that slowly but surely this becomes a more robust system. Next, please. And so, as you can see, I don't know if you're picking up the pattern here, but most of the work is through spec writing. So social health equity, when you're in the spec writing phase, yes, eliminate red lists, integrate VOC limits, ask manufacturers for their codes of conduct, and research and document social hotspots and human rights and labor risk that you find. If you see it, say something. Next, please. The same thing with ecosystem health. There's, as you can see, from step 1 to step 2 is really where we have the most control, because not only are we controlling what people are allowed to use in our sites and what they're allowed to build with, we also are putting pressure into manufacturers and saying, we're not, you have to give us full transparency, and we're not going to spec you if you are not doing the right thing. Next slide, please. So basically, if you didn't listen to anything I said so far, the one thing I want you to take away from this is that your specs shape the market, and you have the power to make a big change in everything that we've talked about so far. Next one, please. And so getting it done, right? We talked about it. How do we get it done? Next slide, please. There is a starter guide in the AIA website that is really helpful. It has a lot of resources. Next slide, please. And so if you have no idea where to start, or if you're inspired by this presentation, I would definitely start there, because it goes into more in depth of everything that we just discussed, how to start, how to implement it, and where to find more information.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. I'm going to introduce Tommy Linstroth from Green Badger, who will talk us through one workflow platform and the how it is available free of charge to the architectural community. Tommy.
All right. I guess I'll just let you know when to advance. So, hey, everybody, appreciate the opportunity. I'm Tommy Linstroth. I am founder of Green Badger, and we are a sustainability platform to make sustainable choices more transparent, accessible, and easy for the design and construction community. As you just heard from the AIA Materials Pledge, there's a lot of things to consider, and we don't all have time to research hundreds of products and compare and contrast, and it can be frankly overwhelming. You can have the need to be a material scientist or have a PhD in this, and it can be a lot. And the AIA Material Pledge is just one aspect, right? We've got increasing carbon requirements from the state of California with embodied carbon, with the city of Boston. We've got client pledges like Amazon's and the Microsoft that are requiring us to use products above and beyond the materials pledge, above and beyond LEED certification. So there's a lot of drivers that are being imposed upon us as designers and construction professionals. And again, it's hard to figure out what all that means and get our buildings designed and built and keep them on budget and on time. Next, please. And so there's often a lot of competing frameworks. I mean, you've got so many acronyms. We've got LEED, BREEAM, Fitwell, LF, Living Building, LBC, WELL. We've got Materials Pledge. We've got all of these, and they're changing, and they change every couple of years. The new version of LEED is just coming out this summer. All of these iterate constantly, and it forces us to use a lot of manual sourcing and validation. Which, hey, if you've got the time and the luxury, it's great to be able to do, but a lot of us might not have that amount of time. And then a lot of the reporting mechanisms we've seen, even the pledge being one, it's a lot of manual tracking. It's a lot of cumbersome Excel spreadsheets. And do you want to spend time sourcing products or reporting on them? There's only so many times in the day, and frankly, it takes an awful lot of time, and that tends to be billable time. So how can we do that quickly and more easily and more transparently? And that is where hopefully some technological solutions can help us play the play. So next slide, please. Certainly that's how we try and frame, is that if we can automate this process of sourcing products, it can help reduce errors and improve efficiency. It's really tough to collaborate on a static document like spreadsheets. So if we can provide mechanisms that help teams work whether they're in the same office, in the same studio, in the same country, wherever it is that they can get together. If we can get rid of some of these manual spreadsheets, we can help validate and ensure that you are meeting your sustainability goals and your client's sustainability goals each and every time. Next, please. So from our side of things, that started with LEED. LEED's been around for 20, 25 years. We didn't know what an EPD was until LEED version 4 came out in 2016, 2017. So it's driven a lot of change that we now have seen get incorporated into the Common Materials Framework and the AIA Materials Pledge, but it still is driven by a lot of manual spreadsheets. And so, we want to help teams work to automate that process by getting rid of spreadsheets and helping to instantly validate a lot of those products so that you guys can focus on things that are meaningful to you. Next, please. So, being able to do that in dashboards where you can easily track progress, and you'll see how this all applies to the materials pledge here shortly. Right now, this system, we've got a ton of architects that use our platform, and as mentioned, you can often use it for free. A lot of times the contractors are covering this and using it as their workflow, and it gives architects free access for the ability to source products and to help roadmap sustainable solutions, as well as to ensure that from an implementation standpoint, the contractor is actually using all of the products and materials that they said they were going to use. Next, please. So you can instantly validate thousands of products, again, originally starting around LEED, but as you'll see here shortly, we've built a module specific for architects for the AIA Material Pledge that's going to help you with everything from EPDs, HPDs, VOCs, CDP. Again, every acronym that a product has, it can be extremely challenging to know what they mean and how they apply. And so we're trying to help make that selection process easier for the design community. Next, please. And again, it gives you all that information in easy dashboards, and you can export it whether you're reporting to clients, you need to submit it for certification, you need to submit it to the AIA for your materials pledge. Next, please. And it goes broader. We'll get to the architects here in a second, but there's broader, again, outside of LEED and rating systems, there's industry requirements that we start to look at things like energy consumption, carbon emissions, embodied carbon, minority and women subcontractor, job site wellness, philanthropy, all sorts of other overlaying requirements that are getting placed upon us. And again, we're trying to help provide the industry a standard workflow so they can have all of that information in one spot. Which next, please, brings us to the design side. And what we'll get into is our newest functionality, which is, again, going to be completely free for architects, but really built to help what you just heard about, the challenges of all of the different material pledge categories and all of the different attributes that products can have. And, for you to spend hours weighing those back and forth or to be able to have them in one spot, we want to help make that possible. So product selection and validation, identifying low carbon products, being able to do some of those front end embodied carbon calculations, and then most importantly, reporting to the materials pledge. We were talking earlier in this presentation about embodied carbon, and yeah, certainly the biggest impacts are in concrete and structural steel, 100%. But are all of us designing those systems? A lot of that gets into structural design and structural engineering. So to me, we need to impact wherever we have ability. And if that's just the paint, because I just do interiors, that's just the paint, and I can still do more informed decisions. So our system is set up to help you make those choices really quick and really easy. So this is an example of what it's going to look like for your project-based AIA material pledge tracking. So you'll have dashboards that show you all 5 different categories of the materials pledge, and then how many different products are contributing to each one of them. And then you can see in the log what those product characteristics are, which products contribute to which categories, what attributes they have, and certainly you can go into the weeds of them. And the cool thing about this is A, as you'll see in the next one, you get to track easily, but B, to Andrea's point, is what do you do with this and the reporting, and whether you're using it for AIA reporting, or at the end of the day, you're just going to start looking, and again, our system fortunately does it for you, but where are there gaps, right? We know if you use certain paints, hey, you're knocking it out of the parks on paints, but where are there gaps in flooring? Where are there gaps in maybe nobody's got a sustainable code-based product, right? And so after you start benchmarking some of these products or projects using the AIA Materials Pledge, it will help shape that narrative of, okay, great, we're doing great with flooring and paints and ceilings, but hey, we're starting to see a gap. We don't have any products that are hitting any of the material pledge categories on, whatever it might be, door hardware, walls, whatever. It'll give you that snapshot of being able to look across a portfolio of projects, and then we can use that to go back to the manufacturers and go back and help them drive change in the industry. So we see step one is let's identify the products that are super helpful, and let's start tracking, because we need to benchmark. The pledge is new. We don't have an assessment across tens of thousands of products to see where those gaps are. But as we get through this in the next year, the next 18 months, we'll be able to start looking. And again, you can look across your firm, your studio, or the industry and start to see where those gaps arise. Next, please. And then in terms of product selection, so when you search our system here, again, you'll be able to put in ceiling tiles or paints or whatever it is, and you can then see all these products. You'll be able to see which AIA material categories they contribute to. You'll be able to see front and center what the embodied carbon is. So you can start to say, all right, well, if I use this very first Sherwin-Williams product, it's got all of these AIA attributes. It's got pretty low global warming potential in its carbon. That's probably a pretty good product to use. You'll be able to create your own custom library, so you can save all of those products into your own library, so that if you do want to use that as your basis of design on your next project, you'll already have them pre-vetted that you can just add them into your project. Next slide. And then in terms of comparison, hey, let's compare these three products. You can select products. It's going to tell you all of the different attributes you have, and then you can make your own informed decision about which products you want to use. So you'll be able to see it visually from the AIA Materials Pledge. You'll be able to see a list of all the attributes, as well as that carbon, so that you can just look and say, all right, well, the Sherwin-Williams ProMar 200 has the most attributes and it has the least global warming potential. That's probably the product that I want to use. And you don't have to spend hours researching or reading through all the documents. The system does all that for you. You can just look at products side by side and make a choice of, assuming from a performance base, of course, they all meet the requirements. But from a sustainability base, boom, pick the ones you want to use, put it in your finished schedule, put it in your spec, whatever the case might be, and you are hopefully off to the races without having to spend a lot of additional time to source and vet products. Next slide, please. Just finish here. This all rolls into LEED version 5. So if that LEED version 5 is coming out, the cool thing about AIA Materials Pledge, from my perspective, or from the industry's perspective, is that LEED's only on a subset of projects. The Materials Pledge says, hey, you need to do this everywhere, which is important to do. But for LEED, all of those things will roll into this. Again, you'll be able to have your embodied carbon analysis, because LEED's looking at that, all of your optimized products, all in one spot, same dashboards. And again, if you're doing the Materials Pledge on top, there's just a separate tab that overlays this, so you can have all of your product information in one spot. With that, we can just move to the last slide. We can skip this one and the next one, please. Skip that, and we'll get to the end. We've got a bunch of free resources. So if you want to learn more about sustainable product options and all that goes into it, or if you don't know what an EPD is or an HPD and those mean nothing to you, but you want to, all of these are free resources. You can go to our website, which is on the next slide, and find it. If you want early access to our AIA Materials Pledge software, which is going live in September, so you can sign up for early access at getgreenbadger.com/AIA. Again, it will be free for architects, going live in September, and we would love your feedback to see how it can be used, how it's helping track, and eventually how can it help report to the AIA Materials Pledge. And then the main website is also where you'll find all of those free resources that if you want to learn more about sustainable product sourcing, they are there and available for demand. So appreciate it, and we'll answer questions here at the end after the rest of the presenters finish up. So thank you.
Thank you, Tommy. So I'm going to go low tech and see what else, what other tools there are that we can use. First, this is something that our firm, Fentress Studios, have been using as a vendor form that we ask vendors to fill out. And the questions are aggregated over a couple of selection criteria sites. This is a work in progress. It needs to be updated, but it basically touches on all the critical questions that affect human health, material, and sustainability. Now, we do get pushback from the vendors. This is asking a lot of them, and basically our response is however much they complete the form, lets us prioritize the lunch and learn opportunities in our office. So it's a pretty effective incentive. Another form that we use, part of the specs in Division 1, it's what we call the lead matrix. And basically all the various divisions of products that are specified are put in a matrix, and across on the right in columns are the lead credits that apply to each specific division. And M is mandatory, P is preferred. And we team this up with a product submittal form. It basically maps over the specific types of certification and product data related to each of the lead credits. And again, we tell the contractor and the subs that any lead submittal that comes in without the submittal form gets a revise and resubmit comment. So from that, taking action, we covered the why and the what, and now it's how do we do this? The first step that is really useful for most of us would be to create a sustainability action plan. It is part of the requirements for firms who sign on to the AIA 2030 commitment and the AIA materials pledge. It is aligned with the AIA framework of design excellence and includes the requirement for a MAP, a materials action plan. Real briefly, what the framework for design excellence is, it's 10 frameworks, starting from a big picture integration of the different disciplines and approaches, and then specific items like ecosystems, water economy, down to resiliency, in change and in discovery. And of these, you can see that 6 of the frameworks are directly related to material selection and use. The other 4 are not isolated from materials. The interconnections are just less direct. So it takes us to the MAP, the AIA Materials Action Plan. What is it? Its purpose is to set goals and targets to establish ways to measure progress, both on an internal firm level and on an industry level, because as we've heard, it is only as a group, as an industry, that we can affect how materials and products are made and used. So the components are, firstly, a company commitment. Start from, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? Understand how it affects our material choices. Next is to look at how we approach design and when decisions on materials are made. Often these are assumptions that occur and we don't question them at the right time or question them deeply enough. Thirdly, to set targets, whether it's lowering your embodied carbon and life cycle impacts, or healthier materials, or environmental justice, or even just establishing a materials library standards. Then we need to set up a system of tracking, whether it's waste, recyclable materials, recyclable content, or the firm, not just the project, but the firm's carbon footprint. And a system and infrastructure to support this, either a person or a team, to establish library standards, to vet materials and vendors, and establish milestones and timeframes for reporting. So the materials pledge is a really good vehicle against which to establish your own internal benchmarks. Training and education internally, get your whole team and your whole firm on board, have them understand why we're doing this and the importance of it, and relate it to your firm's values and how it aligns with your position on sustainability. Next, you communicate outreach. You communicate your message with your clients and your consultants, with your product reps, with your industry contacts. Get your marketing communications group on board so that they can articulate your position as part of the overall firm's value proposition. and also communicate to us, code, and tell us what works and what doesn't work, and how we can improve the process. Finally, looking internally at how your firm actually operates in terms of maintenance practices, purchases, equipment policies. Do they align with your design goals? Simple things like whether you use paper or plasticware, how the food is packaged, whether or not you compost these. All these decisions and actions send a message to your internal staff and to the outside world on what, that you practice what you preach. So 7 components, it may look somewhat daunting. It is in a way, and it is not, depending how you pick your battles. And the following would be a few examples of how other firms have created their different maps. First is Miller Howell, about 100 employees with offices in Seattle and San Diego. And these are, one of the forerunners in sustainability. They were at the AIA Firm of the Year in 2003. They have won, I think, 8 AIA Code Top 10 awards so far. Their objectives, the first 2 are pretty clear: energy and carbon, and then water and basically resources. But then we get down to the materials themselves, the the living building challenge, petal, and occupant health. And under each of these objectives are actions that the firm will take. Another example is ZGF, offices across the country, including in Denver. They have won 2 Code Top 10 awards, most recently in 2024 for their PAE Living Building in Portland. And I like their sort of cheat sheets, the healthier materials rules, which is succinct, easily understood, and easy to implement. And following that is the green dot criteria. So following the rules, they can identify the kinds of materials that they want to use and basically give them a green dot of approval. Ewing Co., another large firm with offices across the country. And this is from the sustainability plan, but they have timelines for short, medium, and long-term goals and specific definitions of success. 2023 to 25 is to lay the groundwork to establish standards and processes, specifications, tracking, and to provide education. In the next 5 years is to have actual goals. They call these categories the buckets. There are 5 buckets, and their goal by 2030 is to have all projects attain success in 3 or more buckets. And buckets are human, basically the red list, climate, global warming thresholds, ecosystems, social equity, and circular economy. So you can see all the different goals and objectives seem to align. We've talked about it at why we want to do this, how we want to do this, and with the AIA pledges, they're very, very similar. And then lastly, for Ewing Cole, into the future is full attainment of these goals. 100% of projects attain success in all 5 buckets. So the criteria have changed and the bars have been raised. So these past examples are from firms that are mid to large size, but they do show a range of approaches, some more aggressive than others. The key is to start. So we hope this will incentivize you to make a commitment, however large or small, because it is only together that we can transform the industry and improve the built environment for all of us. We can wrap up with a list of resources. There are multiple resources out there. It really was going down the rabbit hole when we started researching for this project. But here are the ones that float up the most. And the asterisk bullet, creating a materials action plan, is really helpful because within it, numerous references as well. Others, the red list, EPA, safe materials list, mindful materials, and materials pledges, USDA bio-based program. So multiple, this is not in the least complete. It's just a couple that we have referred to. And with that, back to you, Marisol.
Thank you to all of our presenters. That was such a great comprehensive overview. I saw that we had one question in the chat. Francis, if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask him, or I can just read it here from the chat.
Well, you can read it from the chat, but essentially just that idea of researching a labor hotspot is pretty, I would just speak to that just a little bit if you don't mind. Thank you.
Yeah, I can take that one. So yeah, certainly I would start with cross-referencing public databases and certifications like the U.S. Department of Labor list of goods produced by child labor. I'm gonna put all these links there on the bottom for you. And I think Deborah also had some in there. And then there's also the Mindful Materials Reference Guide. Also, we'll put the link in there. And then if you can't find it, if it's too hard to find, then I would just literally ask, because sometimes that's really what these companies need, is just to have so much attention to that particular, aspect of their business that in itself can make them see, oh, damn, eyes are on us. We have to change some things. So I'm going to put all those links down here for everyone's use.
Thank you.
I have been copying them in the chat as we've been going, the ones that are up on the screen. Andrea, if you have additional resources, definitely share those as well.
To add to Andrea's comment, there are a lot of documents out there from the UN, the EU, even the Department of Labor has some useful information. A couple of sample links I posted in the chat there. So look at the government, and that's not even getting into the organizations that are tracking this. So if there is a hotspot of labor violations, it's probably going to show up in multiple documents. And if you source your material from that region, you can put a big question mark on that material just because of its location and adjacencies.
Thank you. I didn't see any other questions in the chat. So if anyone has a question, feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat and we can go through all of those. All right.
And to be, to be fair to everybody here, this is a very overwhelming subject. Just doing a couple of quick searches, I was pulling up pages and pages of results on just the toxicity of countertops. So if you're looking for, oh yeah, I'm going to do this whole home or this whole project at this level of detail, it's going to be overwhelming, and you're going to go down not just one rabbit hole, but you're going to fall into a minefield of rabbit holes. So my suggestion would be to start at the high level and look at those larger documents. They're going to have resources that direct you to specific tools, sub-resources that you can start working from, and ask. We have resources with AIA. Within firms, larger firms, connect with people, because this is a very daunting task to start drilling down into.
Absolutely. Amanda, to your question about sharing the presentation, we will be uploading this to AIA, this whole presentation to AIA Colorado's YouTube page. And I've also copied all of the links here in the chat. If you have a chance to go through and copy those, you probably don't have time to go through all of them while we're live, but make sure you save those and go through those. But they'll be up on the screen in this recording on the YouTube channel. You can find that on AIA Colorado's website or on YouTube through their YouTube channel. I think we are just coming up to our time now. Thank you so much to our presenters. Thank you to everyone who has joined us for today's presentation. For the presenters that joined us, I don't know if you want to put your contact information in the chat, if that's something that you are open to for people to follow up with any questions. Otherwise, happy Juneteenth. Thank you for joining us and have a great rest of your day.